Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dojo Live. Today is Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, for those listening on the podcast. I'm Tulio Siragusa, broadcasting from Southern California, and I'm joined today by Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico, and Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico, the city of eternal spring. Welcome to the show, guys. And today, Andrew Levy, who's the co-founder and CEO of Aircover, joins us from Silicon Valley. It's good to have you with us, Andrew. We look forward to speaking with you. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to talk about AI and sales. AI and sales. That's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into the topic and dive in and see what we can learn and unpack, let's get to know our guest a little bit and his company. So, Andrew, if you could be so kind, tell us a little bit about yourself. Please introduce yourself to the audience. We'd love to get to know you. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, great to meet you all. And so I'm from the East Coast originally, from New Jersey, moved out to the San Francisco Bay Area about 15 years ago. I've been in the data analytics space. I have an engineering background originally for those past 15 years. I also I have two kids, 4 and a 6-year-old, 2 boys that keep me busy. You know, that's my second startup, and I should say Aircover is my second startup. They're my first startup. And yeah, I've just been in the startup space for a while. It's fun being out in the Bay Area, although things have obviously changed with a lot of the Silicon Valley being really, it's across the world now. You know, you have entrepreneurs starting companies, and so I've been in large enterprise tech, and also been started a few companies in the past.
Great, thanks for being with us. Definitely want to make sure you let them know they're the primary startup, because they might look at this video sometime in the future. Tell us a little bit about Aircover. What gave birth to this idea? What is it that you guys do?
Sure. Yeah. So I had a previous company called Criticism. It's kind of a funny name, and then we renamed it to Aptelligent, and that company grew pretty rapidly. We had developed mobile software to track performance of applications, and at our peak, we're on close to 1 billion devices. We had grown our sales team significantly, and we just found that it was difficult, even at that size. We weren't a Fortune 500 or anything like that, but even at the size of a startup, we found it difficult to really get our sales team aligned on the messaging, the positioning. And that company was acquired by VMware in 2017. And at VMware, I led their analytics and automation product for end user computing. And that was an order of magnitude bigger in terms of the sales team. And we faced those same issues. They had a pretty sophisticated organization, but even there, we ran into this problem of how do we get the sales team aligned, trained? And it felt like the answer in both cases was always, okay, let's train the team some more, right? And we went and did that. And it's only human nature. You need to hear something like 7 or 8 times to fully internalize it. And of course, by the time you do that, it's stale and out of date, and you have to go back and do it all over again, right? The market moves quickly. There's always a new product, a new competitor, new feature, whatever it is. And the sales enablement market, I'd say the legacy market was very much, a lot of them were kind of glorified content management systems. So you have product marketing, you have sales teams uploading content, and then you hope that the sales reps are downloading that and looking at it. And so, there's low engagement, it's out of date. If you combine all that with the fact that you look at how the world's evolved and changed, where you have Zoom and Teams and others have really solved some foundational issues with video conferencing. And we have machines powerful enough where you can do real-time analysis. So that basically the idea is, well, can we bring all of that sales enablement to the sales rep while they're in a meeting, while they're having a live conversation, in addition to, kind of complementing. Obviously, you still need to train them. You still want to make sure that they're following the sales process, but can you bring elements of that directly into those critical meetings? So that was the genesis of the idea, was, let's meet the sales reps where they are. Let's help them in real time, and basically analyze the conversation and see if we can guide those reps from start to finish through that sales process.
Amazing. I'm reminiscing of many years ago, a company that was adopting some of that. I mean, way before the internet took off. And I was like, wow, we were really progressive back then, thinking this way. All right, let's see what we can learn and unpack today. Kim, please, could you introduce the topic and kick it off?
Sure, I hope so, if my internet cooperates. So today's topic, as chosen by you, Andrew, and thank you for being here, is AI-driven future of remote sales specifically. And can sales enablement be done real time in meeting to scale and win more revenue with your remote customer-facing teams? So before we get into the specifics of this, I'd like to talk about the remote sales aspect. Right now, all of us are very much aware of what had happened in 2020 into 2021. It doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. So how has sales shifted over this last 2 years specifically, or if you want to go back a little further, why is remote sales where it's at?
Yeah. Well, obviously with the pandemic, as I'd say, accelerated a trend that was happening even before the pandemic. I'm sure we've all been in this position where you find yourself flying halfway across the country or maybe even halfway across the world for a sales meeting, right? And obviously it's extremely time consuming, it's expensive. You try your best to see if you can stack some other meetings while you're out there, but at the end of the day, it's very much not a high transactional model. It costs quite a bit of money for those companies. And so the trend was, let's adopt video conferencing. Let's try to move towards a more transactional, high velocity model where, we can have more customer conversations. We can increase the bandwidth of our sales force and get away from that old model of, okay, let's, take the prospect out for golf and, I don't think some of those things will go away completely, of course, but right. The pandemic certainly accelerated that. And, I think the other aspect of it is we've become more sophisticated with how we sell. We have more tools and technology to enable the reps to prepare better for the meetings. I mentioned Zoom and Teams solving some foundational issues. If you go back maybe 10 years ago, and I won't necessarily name names, but there were video conferencing software that just didn't work as effectively. Have much more issues. You have calls dropping, freezing, and so you didn't have the it just works mentality towards it. I was actually we were a very early adopter of Zoom. I had a friend that was one of their first executive hires there, and even our sales reps at the time were a little hesitant. That this was back circa maybe 2012 to adopt it, but they got over it, and it's obviously the world has changed.
Thank you.
All right.
And I think our mentality, not just the technology, but we as people are more inclined or used to or willing to function and work this way. So as we talk specifically about Aircover, I'm guessing there's an element of natural language processing that has to happen with your technology?
Yes. And I'd say, so I'll get into the detail on that. I guess one other thing to add is, I think the other thing that's really changed is that we're starting to see some specialization around video conferencing. And I'll get back, and yes, we are doing real-time translation and transcription, and that's another part of what's changed is that the open source and technology stacks around doing natural language processing has really evolved to enable a lot of these, to really enable us to do this in real time, because there's always been kind of post-call analytics, products, and that's then those are valuable, but doing this as the conversation progresses is kind of another level of technology that you need to build. But going back to one thing I was going to mention is that the specialization, and I think we saw this with kind of the web 1.0 to web 2.0 transition where you had, I'll pick on Amazon, right? Kind of, you can sell everything.
Touche. Today's a really good day to do that.
Yes. Yeah, there's some AWS issues today, but the fact is, over time, what happened is you had services that specialized and catered towards different experiences emerge, right? You had Etsy, you had Chewy, Etsy for handmade goods, Chewy for pet owners, Zappos for shoes, right? And now that video conferencing just works, and they've built platforms that developers can go and build on top of, we'll start to move away from musicians and students and yoga instructors and enterprise sales reps all using the same software, right? That doesn't necessarily make sense. You can deliver a much more catered experience for those individuals, still leverage the underlying technology and platform that these companies have built out. And that is part of the shift that we're taking advantage of. And in addition to the advancements in natural language processing to be able to do a lot of this kind of real-time conversational analysis, this real-time objection handling, to help walk the sales reps through the meeting.
Andrew, I can see that it would be very easy regarding adoption. It would be very easy, specifically for technology companies, for example, software as a service companies, so consumer-facing sites. So all these companies that are technological in nature, it would be very easy or easier to adopt a solution like the one that Aircover represents. But what would you say to folks who are not necessarily could be, for example, a mid-sized company or a small company that is more on the retail side or a brick and mortar type of company that is thinking of, how can I say this, broadening their technology options specifically in sales, but might be, let's say, a little bit weary of adamant to step into the AI space because they might have this concern that, I don't want to replace human beings, and I know that we understand it, right? But there may be people who have this issue or concern. Let's call it a concern. What would you say to these people to leave them at ease?
Yeah, and I'll give you some use cases to kind of draw the examples there. So, well, first of all, actually, and the name Aircover kind of implies this, but we're actually not replacing people. Like there's basically a whole class of AI solutions that are more bot driven, and there's actually some solutions in the sales space that do just this, right? They create these almost sales development rep or SDR bots where they try to qualify the leads, like say in a chat on a website, before they pass it off to a human. And there's some benefits of doing that, some obvious benefits, it's a valid space to go after. But what we're doing is almost like the AI assistant that is there for you, for the human, while they're having a conversation with another human, right? So an example would be, let's say you're talking to a prospect and they bring up a competitor. We can pick up on, basically certain keywords, whether it's even it could be something simple as the name of the competitor, or it could be names of the products that they own, or maybe even a landmine the competitor has put in there for you. So basically you could tell by the questions that they're asking that there's some competitive situation going on here. What we can do is we pick up on that and then pull up a real-time battle card, which is basically like a real-time, think of it like a real-time index card that comes up with silver bullets on how the rep should respond. Okay, here's how you handle objections. Like, here are recent customer wins. Here's how you should handle pricing conversations in the competitive conversation. And this is a very straightforward, simple example where now you can go back to your product marketing team and say, hey, imagine you can enable your entire field in real time. So as soon as there's a new competitor, as soon as you update your messaging and positioning, all of that will immediately be available to your entire field. So all of that training that you'd have to go back and do, basically it's right at their fingertips. And what it does is enables all of your sellers to get aligned. And some of the feedback we've heard is, letting your your new reps or your underperforming reps really stand on the shoulders of your best reps, because now you're kind of raising the bar for everyone and giving them access to the information that maybe those best reps could at times know off the top of their head, but really now it's available immediately for everyone. That's just one example of how you might leverage, say, AI assistant or real-time transcription to give more information. But it's also about what tools that we can build in. Think of it this way: there's a lot that happens in a sales meeting. You can have loose ends. It could extend the sales cycle. So being able to do something as simple as just more easily track action items, be able to assign them out, but be able to do that all within the context of your video call. So those important items are captured immediately, even before you get off the call. Or those are just two examples. I can continue listing them off, but there's basically all of these best practices for a sales team that you'd want to build into the flow of a meeting. And all of those best practices, those sales frameworks, they depend on what stage of the meeting you're at, what type of persona are you talking to, what vertical is that company operate in. So you have these sales playbooks, and now you can create this living and breathing playbook that can adapt in real time to, okay, what type of meeting is this, who are you talking to, et cetera.
So Andrew, just to kind of unpack this a little bit more, if we go back a little bit in time, right? When I think of some of the best performing salespeople, one of their secret sauces, they've worked very, very closely with solutions engineers or sales engineers that have been there, done that so many times with so many clients that they're just a world of information, walking knowledge information that when you bring them in, they can answer questions, they can borrow from where they've seen it, they can talk authoritatively to solving a problem for a particular client. In a remote environment, obviously, it's different. You're inviting these folks on a video call to participate, but not every organization has the luxury of having solutions engineers or sales engineers or having enough of them to enable everyone in the organization to become more effective. So is this, in essence, the sales engineer in a box, or is it more aligned around giving the content necessary to prepare for a call in advance, or a hybrid of the two? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So there's always going to be your prep before the call, and then kind of the post-call analysis, and where you want to circle back with the team. And certainly the data we're collecting while we're live in the call feeds into both, right? So it's kind of this life cycle. But you actually hit the nail on the head with those subject matter experts, because they are, especially in a remote workforce, this is what's happening. The sales rep's on a call, the prospect asks them a question, and the rep is thinking, like, probably some expletives. Oh no, like what's going on? So they're pinging their friends on the side, their colleagues, those subject matter experts, whether they're sales engineers, product managers, product marketing, and they're frantically trying to find an answer to some question that's being asked. And, they may get an answer back before the meeting ends, maybe not. They'll probably schedule a follow-up where they try to bring on those people that are overworked and being pinged constantly. And those people may not exist, to your point, and the kind of the way that happens today in organizations isn't really centralized. They may have content sitting in a Google Drive or Dropbox somewhere inside of a sales enablement system. Some of it's in Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever CRM they're using. So the point is, there's a lot of tribal knowledge in an organization, and there's a lot of best practices in terms of following the proper sales process that can really help get in front of some of those questions and some of those issues. And an example is probing questions, qualification and discovery criteria. So really, the opportunity is, can we get the reps more in the driver's seat, which is where they should be, proactively asking some of those leading questions to get to whatever the ROI is that they're trying to prove, right? Get them asking, okay, what pain point are you having? Why is this? Okay, you're experiencing this pain, why? And then getting to that ROI case versus, getting peppered with questions, being caught off guard, having to deal with that objection handling, which certainly is a critical piece, and we're building that out, of course. But that's a great example of where we can provide and other AI solutions really can provide additional leverage for the organization, not by completely replacing those people, but by giving those people tools to better disseminate their knowledge, and again, not just about content, but putting the proper tooling in place so they can follow the right sales process.
So it would sort of be like having this safety blanket or this side seat, passenger seat driver, or this coach kind of with me that would kind of prompt, like, this would be a good time to ask, this question. Or I heard you mention pricing. Here's the current rates. Like, is all of this sort of like feeding in like a private sort of chat, or not a chat necessarily, but for me only, where I or my team have visibility?
Yeah, and I think that's right. And it sound like you said, selling is a team sport. So this isn't about necessarily the individual rep, although it certainly still works for an individual. You'd want to engage with the broader team. But the opportunity is to do that, but then to also take a step back and analyze it for the organization. Okay, what is working? Like, what's not working? So you can really make those playbooks living and breathing. Typically in the past, they've been static. You'll go back and revisit, you'll look at maybe the results at the end of the year or the end of the quarter. But now we have the opportunity to collect this data and really in real time also present, okay, what are the most common questions that are leading to the most desirable outcomes? And it's not just for the existing reps. Like, this is given the new world we live in. I'm sure you've seen the news a lot. There's a lot of mobility between employees are basically leaving companies. They're kind of pursuing different careers, different jobs. They're moving to different locations. So there's a lot of turnover in these sales teams. And when any employee leaves, but especially in the sales side, you lose that tribal knowledge we're talking about. Especially if it's a subject matter expert in a certain area. And so there needs to be a way not just to keep your current reps up to date, but to more quickly get all of these new reps that you're hiring enabled, onboarded, basically get them out of training and get them producing against their quotas much more quickly. Because again, otherwise it's extremely expensive. You can experience very high ramp times. Something like 8 months is not atypical, for a rep to be fully ramped. So having that that security, like you mentioned on the call, or just being assured that we are providing the right information even to those new reps, not just your existing reps, really helps solve that problem as well.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I think it makes this, I understand it to make this collective element of like not just going with our gut, but then also making like that sales nature gut instinct sort of visible to everyone else, and then verifying if what we think is happening is actually happening or not. I think that's great.
So Andrew, I'm curious who the buyers are. Is it company that in services companies there are a lot less salespeople than in product company, or sometimes it's reversed. Is this a better fit for organization to have a lot of salespeople that may have more turnover, so they need to stabilize, being able to ramp someone up? Is there a specific sort of ICP that you're targeting?
Yeah.
Is it the CMO's office, the chief revenue office? Who's the buyer?
Yeah, so the CRO side, I mean, sales enablement is still relatively new for a lot of organizations, and typically they'll sit within sales within that same buying center, and so it would be at the highest levels the VPs of sales, CROs, but even the regional directors have plenty of buying power. In terms of the types of organizations, although we're targeting B2B, there's no reason that if you have a large B2C sales force, this wouldn't be valuable. We talked to one not too long ago that has thousands of sales reps, and they're basically getting a bunch of, they're having trouble with a lot of the issues that we mentioned, right? So they were selling smart home equipment, was that company. But when I think about, maybe an easier way to answer that is who do I believe this wouldn't be as helpful for, which is always kind of an interesting question. When I think about the sales reps that have maybe a handful, let's call it like 3 accounts a year, and they only focus on selling to those organizations, they are, their whole life, in some cases, they even have a badge in these organizations. Their whole life is to go deep, to know, anyone and everyone in those orgs, to live and breathe those organizations. They have extremely long sales cycles, like could be multi-year sales cycles. We're not focused on those individuals, and those individuals will also go to some of the more old school methods of sales, as we talked about in the beginning, right? They will take them out. They will, play golf with them. There's nothing wrong with that, actually. We'll be at a sales conference in March, probably doing top golf with people. So, you don't get
those were the good old days.
But the point is, if you are building an organization that needs to be able to scale quickly, to you have it doesn't necessarily even have to be a lot of reps, but you could have a complex product portfolio. You could have a transactional model where there's a lot of you need to be able to give more leverage to your reps because they're working on a lot of concurrent deals. I'd say anywhere, it could be anywhere from 3 to 18 month sales cycles might be our sweet spot, but it's really for anyone that's trying to adapt to this new work environment that we've been talking about.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Carlos, we're coming up on time. You want to take culture?
We can't tell if you're talking. We can't hear you.
I was
frozen, so we can't see if you're talking or not.
Carlos is.
You wouldn't miss me. I wouldn't want you to miss me, so I put myself on mute so that
Well, you're also
familiar.
frozen.
You're also frozen. You've taken it to another level now. Mute and frozen.
Mute and frozen. There you have. Well, at
You've
least
stepped it up.
you can hear me, right? You can hear me. Okay. Well, just one more thing, really quick, Andrew. Say that I'm looking for a job and I run into Aircover, and then I think go to your website and say, well, I think, well, this is a great company. Could be potentially a great company. What would you say that makes Aircover a company that would reel in only the best of talent, be it engineering, design, sales, whatever it is? What makes Aircover a great company that most people would want to come work for?
Yeah. So, we've all, so me and my co-founders, we've all done this before. We're experienced entrepreneurs. We've built and sold a company at scale. We have a great idea of what works, what doesn't work, although we're still learning. And that's a big part of the culture we're building is around mentorship. And mentorship works both ways, right? So I always hope that I can hire people that I can learn from, not only that are smarter than me, but just have different experiences and can bring different ideas to the table. So that's a critical part of our culture. Of course, a lot of people talk about diversity and inclusion, and that's, we're no different in that respect. We were talking before the call started about how my wife's an engineer, and I try to stay active with her in the code community out here, and so really, and that's actually something that worked last time around at my last startup. Is we made an early effort to bring in diverse talent, and we just found that we had a much more diverse set of perspectives. So even, we're still a small company, but it's already something that we're very much focused on. And then beyond that, I just think we're operating in a really cool space. We have the mission around changing the way that sales is done is good, not just for the companies we work with, but also for the folks on the other end who are getting a much more catered personal experience. Mm-hmm. They're not going to feel like they're wasting their time as much with someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. So we're really trying to bridge that gap, and it's about both sides, not only about the rep. So yeah, I think what we're working on, what others in this space of kind of creating these unique solutions that leverage video conferencing to enable that hybrid work environment. There's a lot of interesting things in that space that are evolving.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate it. Okay, back to you guys for wrap up.
Thanks. Yeah, we're up on time. We could talk a lot longer. I do have one question. I'm curious, for someone who's done startups before and gone through exits, what lessons have you personally learned from each experience that you've applied here? Anything that stands out that comes to mind as sort of like, hey, I want to do that differently the next time, or I'm going to do this more the next time? I'd love to hear that if you could.
Yeah, why we could go all day on that, but I guess, and also, if we grab a drink, you may hear me more. But I think first of all, just being open and transparent about both the good and the bad. You don't have to be always a cheerleader. You don't always have to. So just being upfront with employees about what's working, what's not working. And I think that's critical. That's really important. I think last time around, we also just hired, I'd say we hit the gas we were growing quickly, but we probably hit the gas earlier and we expanded faster in some areas than others that I wouldn't this time around. I'll give you one great example. We added customer success as an afterthought last time. It was way too late. Now, given customer success I started the last company in 2011, so it was still early days for that as a concept. We had a support team at first, but I can tell you our first hire, right now, most of our team is engineers, but the first non-engineer hire is customer success for us, right? So that's super critical, especially with product-led growth and just making sure, the fact that we're analyzing data to see how's retention, how are customers engaging with the product, that's a big area that will change. And then, even I hired last time around, we had a sales team that maybe was a mismatch in approach because we were more of a high velocity model versus having a large outside sales team. So that this time around, we'll make that fit better. Anyway, that's just a few things, but we could, that's a whole nother.
Well, thanks for sharing all that. It's always great to hear. And I'm sure those who are watching that are on the fence about becoming an entrepreneur or starting a business can learn a lot from that. So hopefully we need to have more entrepreneurs share more of that more often. So thanks for joining us today, for being with us. We wish you a lot of success. Stay with us as we go off the air in just a minute. Carlos, tomorrow we have tomorrow's Wednesday. What do we got? We got one more show tomorrow, right?
We got one more show. There's I remind the audience that we don't have a show on Thursday because we have our all hands, so we are not doing a show. However, tomorrow we'll be speaking with Angela Castillo, the co-founder and Chief Operations Officer at Hello Guru. The topic is going to be free the developers using no code. So that's right here on Dojo Live tomorrow, 12 p.m. Pacific, as usual. So remember, folks, join us tomorrow right here, 12 p.m. Pacific. Have fun, enjoy life, and be safe. Thank you.